Take one. Okay, this is my vision of the direct combination interface. It's just a starting point. I don't know how much of it will be necessary experimentally, but I'm just going to run through it and then hopefully you should get the idea of what we're talking about. Okay, so firstly, we're looking at something which is a statistical program. Now, initially, the big question is how to get data in, and there's two ways of doing that. Firstly is drag and drop, so you just drag some data from another application and drop it in. And secondly there's paste, which will take it from the clipboard. And you notice that what happens is that columns of data will come in. A column should be uniform, it should have a label at the beginning of it, and if it's bigger than the screen will allow, you just get a truncation at the bottom of it, and then you can hopefully just resize the bottom and stretch them up and down. Right, so that's the data. Here we see data can be in different formats. We can have integer values, we can have floating point values, we can have characters representing category values, possibly string values as categories as well. So over here we have y and n as a category value. Okay, now the red circles are going to represent fingers being touched on a surface or an iPad. And there are plenty of libraries for JavaScript that will handle multi-touch. So when you click on a column, it will create this grey region around it, which I'm calling the aura. And onto the aura you will see a number of menu items or a number of commands that you can do to that item. So for example, if we click on color, and notice we're holding our finger down on the data on the column and clicking column with the other finger, you will actually see it's colored by the kind of histogram of values. But that's just an example. If we click on another column, so this one has integer numbers, the aura changes the options. So some of the options are the same, sort of color, but then we might get other options like average or histogram. So the first direct combination aspect is if you single click on something, you get different auras appearing around it. And the important part there is that it's not really that different from a pop-up menu that's contextual. And in this case, what will happen is if you click on average, you'll get this small little datagram following the main area around. If we click on histogram, again notice the two-fingered action, a histogram of all the values appears. Now one little thing that I find really irritating that doesn't happen in most programs but really should do is that if you click on an item in the table, it should select it in the bar chart or whatever diagram that's being presented, and similarly if you click in the chart, it should select it in the datagram. So there should be a one-to-one correspondence in terms of highlighting. And that's mostly to do deeper data exploration in a simple way. Now, let's get on to the meat. Now let's start off with bimanual dragging. So here we're seeing one data column height and another data column a sample of heights being dragged towards each other. Obviously as soon as you click them they will get auras, but then as you push them together the auras collide, and then at that point the auras present questions or actions that can be operated on the data in combination. So for example, it recognizes that these two columns are the same types, they're both numbers, but they're of different lengths. So for example, it can actually say, is this group of data a sample of the other group of data? So this is basically technically performing a chi-squared test or a t-test, but there are various options, and what I'm going to go for is why not have some simple statements. In the middle here we can actually see a graphical representation of the means in black, the standard deviations and the minimum and maximum values. And then again here you can see whether or not there is a a graphical difference between them. But the important part is when data collides, auras emerge, and the actions on those auras change relative to the types of data being operated upon. Now let's try changing, dragging something that's completely incompatible. So we're starting off with height, and we're dragging a category, male or female, towards it, and the categories are different size from the original data, so there's no way this data can be related. Well, at that point the auras are incompatible, and it indicates this by keeping them spread apart and nothing appearing on them. If you drag two columns together from the same original table, then you'll get, again, different types of options, like for example plotting them on a scattergram, or it might think they might be before and after data, so it offers to do a before after statistical test. Again, the table knows it has categories, so it offers if we have equal lengths of, say, category data male female and height sample data, it then knows that it can deal with that kind of information in a different way. So notice the length of the table actually affects the kind of actions the aura produces. And again, if you have 3 items pushed into one aura, this again changes the kind of actions that are available. So at this point you get a multi chi-squared item or a plot. Again, there's going to be some aspects which are going to depend upon you understanding what the data actually represents, but the machine will just offer those as options and get rid of all the options that don't make sense. Finally, and again this is a bit optional extra, if you click with 2 fingers on an aura on a data column and then push the fingers apart like you're kind of zooming in, it will actually split the aura and it will create this kind of ghosting aura here. And what that will do is create a ghost column, and a ghost column is basically a transformation of another column. It doesn't actually exist, there's no data there, but when it does want data, it goes through some kind of conversion process, and that might be a filter. So for example, make me a smaller column where everything is less than 35, or it might be a numerical transformation, like take this column and multiply it by 6. And again, in an ideal fantasy world, you could do this in multiple columns. Okay, so that's the broad image of what direct combination is, and I feel that it's all completely doable in JavaScript and HTML5. Let's start the kind of negotiation process from here.